line drive was fouled, just by inches. Bugs Courtney can certainly clobber that ball. Well, here we are. First of the ninth, 2 men out, 2 on base, and the count on Bugs, 3 balls, 2 strikes. Score 0-0. This is Del Charbot at Ringo Stadium in St. Louis. You know, if St. Louis wins today, it'll be a clean sweep, having won a doubleheader 7-2 and 10-0 yesterday. Looks like the league leaders are fading pretty fast, and St. Louis might take over. Well, now the outfield is moved back into position, and here's the pitch. Ball 4. Bugs walks, filling the bases. Now up comes their slugger, Hank Metters. Hey, wait a minute. There's a terrific rhubarb. It looks like a youngster coming up to the plate. Hey, check this, Dave. No, it can't be a youngster. He has a big cigar in his mouth. Little bat and a big cigar. Well, here's the scoop on the rhubarb. For the first time in big league baseball, we have batting in the cleanup position for the league-leading champs, Pearl DeMonzo, a midget.
You are listening to the CBS Radio Workshop, dedicated to man's imagination, the theater of the mind. Today we salute 2 great American institutions. The institution of James Grover Thurber, whose penetrating vision into the word and line has brought so much happiness to so many. And to the institution of baseball, a slice of Americana that quickens the pulse of the nation with the battle cry, play ball. Our efforts today are directed to the little leaguers with stars in their eyes, to the players in the minors hoping for that call which will take them to the majors and their big chance, to the players in the majors who this day are struggling so hard to live up to that promise, to the thousands of grandmothers who died so abruptly of a Wednesday afternoon so that their devoted grandsons could pay them homage in ballparks all over our nation. And to you husbands who can't remember an anniversary or a birthday, but when called on can give the batting averages in both leagues for the past 20 years. We challenge you with James Thurber's You Could Look It Up.
When most people in our town think of baseball, they think of Squawks McGrew. He came by this handle because of a peculiar quality of voice. When things were fouled up and the team was in a slump, he'd start screaming, and then it would happen. Suddenly, he'd almost lose his voice and end up squealing like a little girl whose doll had been stepped on. All this was several years ago, when McGrew was a manager and making one of the greatest names in baseball. Now, the old boy had come home to rock away his last innings. I was making my annual visit. My paper sent me to get a story to find out who would play in the World Series. McGrew had an uncanny genius for prophecy, speaking a language all his own, and for baseball.
Hello, Larry. Come on in.
Thanks, Mr. McGrew.
Now, don't tell me, boy, that another year has passed.
Great so. Well, Mr. McGrew, I won't take up much of your time. You've always said the teams in first place the 4th of July usually win the series. This year, it's the Yankees and Cincinnati. You think that's the way it's going to wind up?
No, don't hurry me, boy. Let's sit out here on the porch and rock a while, hmm? Speaking of those teams in first place and the 4th of July and all that, I'd like to tell you how once we led the whole league by about 7-8 games till about mid-September. Within a few days, that margin was trimmed down so as you could got it in the eye of a thimble. Just being about half a game ahead of St. Louis. Now, we've just been belted by Pittsburgh, was headed down to Columbus for an exhibition game. What a slump we was in. The boys running around snarling at each other, eating bad, sleeping worse. Batting for the team average is maybe hot 186. Half the time, nobody would speak, nobody else, lest it was to ball them out. Son, this is probably a long way to tell you. Would you like some lemonade?
No, thanks, Mr. McGrew. Tell me, what happened in Columbus?
Well, even Columbus shut us out, 3-2. Don't mind telling you, son, I was mighty near crazy, what with the hitting and all. While we was at the Chittenden Hotel and really snarling. Believe me, I wished I was dead. I was sitting at the bar of the old Chittenden, killing time, waiting on the train to St. Louis, when up comes Bugs Courtney.
Squawk!
Get lost, Bugs.
You gotta get in the dining room. The boys are killing each other. Whitey Cut just hit Billy Klinger between the eyes with a T-bone steak.
Let 'em blind each other. Can't none of 'em see anyways. Go on, beat it, Bugs.
Look, Squawk, if you want a bar club...
I said beat it. And remember, Bugs, the Wright brothers have still got to build an airship big enough for you to hit with a ball bat. Oh, bartender.
Yes, Mr. McGrew?
How I pity me, brother, how I pity me. I thought I was the manager of a great ball team. Instead of that, I'm managing a bunch of blindfolded circus clowns.
Are you right? I seen that game today, Junior. You ain't got no ball club. What you got there, Junior, is a sideshow.
Bartender, bring me some black coffee. I must be having a DTs. I swear I've been talking to a 2.5-foot man.
It's all right, Mr. McGrew. This little guy here is Pearl Dumontville.
Pearl Dumontville. Pearl? I thought that was a girl's name.
Hold it, Junior.
What do you mean, Junior?
Don't pay him no attention. Pearl calls everybody Junior, because it always turns out he's a year older than anybody else.
Oh, yeah? Well, how old is he?
How old are you, Junior?
Oh, me? I'm 53.
Well, I'm 54.
Okay. What do you have, Dad?
Same as you, Junior. Give me a lift up in the bar, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Right this way, folks. Come right in and see the greatest collection of freaks in the world. See the armless pitcher. See the infielders with 5 thumbs. See the eyeless batters.
That's great, Pearl. That's great. You tell them. Go on.
Come on, boss. The fellas want to get out of here. People are staring at us.
Wait a minute. Pearl, I want you to meet my clowns. Clowns, this is Pearl Dumontville, a Monsieur of the old school. Now, watch it, Pearl. Don't shake hands with them. The fingers are made of chalk. It'll bust right off in your paw.
Oh, you bigger, my girl. Come on, then, folks. Step right up and see the legless base runner. See the outfielders with butterfingers. See the southpaw with the arm of a child.
Of a child. All right, quiet, fellas. Whitey, Hank, want you two to bring the Pearl along. He's coming as mascot.
What?
And I'm holding you 2 guys responsible.
Hey, wait a minute, Junior. How am I going without no toothbrush? What am I going to do with no other suit?
The boys will take care of you. Okay, I'm going to check out. I'll see you at the train. See the guys with the glass arms, eh? See the guys with the cast iron brains. See the players with feet on their wrists.
Shorty, why don't you go home now, huh? Come morning and McGrew will forget all about you.
Yeah. He probably thinks you were something he's seen in a nightmare, and he won't laugh so easy in the morning either. Now, why don't you go on home?
Next. Skidoo. And 23 for you. Mr. Pearl Dumontville is heading for St. Louis.
Hey, McGrew, remember where you found this? Or maybe you think they come with a breakfast on his tray.
Sneeze, your brains is dusty.
Here, here's a towel. Wipe your face. Sit down here, Bugs.
There's a real couple of Damon and Phileases across the aisle, ain't they?
Hi, guys.
Why do we got enough trouble around here today? Why don't you go and play with your midget?
What kind of a crack is that? Let that have it, you wise guy.
Oh, yeah?
Don't give me that stuff.
That's what I got for a ball club, Mr. Dumonville. Rasslers.
A man can't be good at everything, but he ought to be good at something.
Oh, I wished I was manager of an old ladies' sewing circle instead of a ball club.
That's great, Junior. That's great. You are. You are.
You little
All right, lay off, Hank. Now listen, you guys. If any of you hurt Pearl, I'll break your neck. Pearl here is the official mascot. And I want him to have a miniature suit and everything, just like the rest of us.
Oh, fine.
And Hank, I'm holding you responsible.
Thanks a lot.
Well, the first thing you're going to do, Pearl, is get rid of that cigar. And if you wear our suit on the field and go insulting it, I am going myself to take you out of the zoo and feed you to the bears. What? Little blow smoke in my face, will you?
Hold it. I told you, no trouble. If anything happens to him, Hank, you're responsible. Now remember, you guys, we have a double-header tomorrow. So see if you can try hard enough not to disgrace Pearl and me. Okay. Now clear out. Pearl and I have some serious talking to do. Pearl, I tell you, them clowns are sure taking a lot out of me. I wished I was dead.
What makes you think you ain't, Junior? What makes you think you ain't?
Oh, now lay you off, will you? Pearl, tell me the truth. How old are you?
I told you, 54.
Okay. How tall are you?
I'm 31 and a half... No, 32 inches tall.
32 inches... That's fine. Tomorrow, I'm taking out legal and proper papers constituting one Pearl Dumonville a bona fide member of this former ball club. Maybe that'll shame them big babies into getting in there and swinging, knowing I can replace any of them with a midget. I beg your pardon, Pearl.
Okay, Junior.
Yes, sir. I'm going to make it all legal and proper.
Line drive was fouled just by inches. Bugs Courtney can certainly clobber that ball. Well, here we are, first of the ninth. 2 men out, 2 on base, and the count on Bugs, 3 balls, 2 strikes. Score 0-0. This is Del Sharbutt at Ringo Stadium in St. Louis. If St. Louis wins today, it'll be a clean sweep, having won a doubleheader 7-2 and 10-0 yesterday. It looks like the league leaders are fading fast, and St. Louis will take over. Well, now the outfield is moved back into position, and here's the pitch. Ball 4. Bugs walks, filling the bases. And now up comes their slugger, Hank Metters. Wait a minute. There's a terrific rhubarb. It looks like a youngster coming up to the plate. Check this, Ted. No, it can't be a youngster. He has a big cigar in his mouth. A little bat and a big cigar. Oh, well, now, here's the scoop on the rhubarb. For the first time in big league baseball, we have batting in the cleanup position for the league-leading champ, Pearl Dumonville, a midget. Well, this rhubarb seems to be growing and growing. I'm sure it's going to be a few minutes before they can get this game going again. So we've sent Ted down on the field with a portable mic. Can you hear me, Ted? Ladies and gentlemen, I see the St. Louis manager is up out of the dugout, and everyone is screaming and yelling. Again, we'll try to take you down on the field. Ted, come in. Ted, can you hear me? Come in. Come in.
Okay, Del. I'm down here, and the pandemonium here is terrific. We'll try to get as much of the conversation as possible. Here's McGrew and Umpire Kelly screaming at each other.
I'm telling you, McGrew. I'm telling you, get a batter up there or you'll forfeit the game.
I told you, Anthony ain't a pinch hitter. There he is, Pearl de Montville. You stand right beside me, Pearl.
You got yourself a boy, Junior. Watch it, McGrew. Here comes that squarehead, the St. Louis manager.
McGrew, what are you trying to pull? Are you trying to disgrace baseball? They ought to bring the funny wagon for you. You know there ain't no pitcher alive can pitch no ball for no pitcher.
It's all proper and legal. Here are the papers. Kelly signed with the owners, okay for the manager. Here you are. Now look it up.
I don't care what no paper says. He's a midget.
Doesn't look right to me. He's using the kid's bat.
I don't care about any of that. But McGrew, where you been keeping him all season?
McGrew, maybe we had better get out of here. Here's up to the field. I'm borrowed with the rule book.
What are you off that mouth for, Pearl?
Well, looks like it's legal and proper, just like McGrew said. All right, get back to your places. Get back in the dugout. Now, if there's any more screaming here, St. Louis will forfeit the game. Okay, McGrew, since you're half ball player in there.
Okay. Pearl, you just stand up there and hold that bat on your shoulder. There ain't a man in the world who can throw 3 strikes in there before he can throw 4 balls.
I get it, Junior. You'll have to walk me, and that will force in the winning run.
That's it, Pearl. That's it. Just stand there. Don't let me down.
I won't. Junior, light my cigar for me. You and me is gonna make history.
This is Del Sharbutt up in the press box again. Thank you, Ted. Thanks for that clarification of what's going on down there. Well, we are... Hey, wait a minute. The pitcher threw his glove on the ground and is stamping on it. I don't blame him, inasmuch as he's just walked 2 normal-sized men. Now he has a man at the plate who couldn't be more than 15 inches between his knees and his shoulders. The catcher is towering over the batter like the Washington Monument. Wait a minute. I have never seen anything like this. The plate umpire started standing on his tiptoes. Now he tries bending down. Nothing seems to work. Oh, this crowd is going mad. Well, he has a stance that no one has ever seen on a ball field before. The umpire is squatting on his haunches. All right, here's the first pitch. Ball 1. That was 2 feet over DeMontville's head. The catcher is going out to the mound now to talk to the pitcher. He hands him the ball. Comes back to the plate. And now, here's the pitch. Side armor. Ball 2. Well, that one was a little closer. With a normal-sized man, I think it would have been a strike. With DeMontville, it was about 1.5 feet above his head. The catcher is going out to the mound again. And the third baseman has also come into the mound to talk things over. DeMontville is just standing there, motionless, with that tiny bat over his shoulder. But he's blowing smoke rings. Well, here comes the catcher back. Boy, he gave DeMontville a look like he would like to see him in a bottle of alcohol. This is really fantastic. The runners on the bases have sat down on the bags. All right, ready for the next pitch. Here it comes. This is the slowest ball I've ever seen pitched. It's coming, slow. I believe it's going to be a... Oh, no! He hits the ball! Fair ball! The ball is rolling slowly down toward third. The infield is coming in fast. DeMontville is running toward first. The runners are up from their bases and are coming in. I think the catcher has the ball. No, he booted it. Out past the pitcher's box. The pitcher is falling on his face trying to stop it. I believe the shortstop has it. DeMontville still running toward first. The shortstop kicks the ball and is rolling toward second base. The runners are all in. DeMontville still running toward first. Still 20 feet from the bag. The second baseman has finally gotten the ball, and here's the throw. Everything has broken loose down there on the field, and I'm going to try to pick up Ted. Ted, come in.
Here I am, Del. Down here by first. Pandemonium's broken loose. Here comes McGrew, running with tears streaming down his face. I'll try to pick this up, Del.
Well, what did you do? Well!
back up here in the press box. This is amazing. It looks like McGrew is swinging his batter around like a hammer thrower, and it looks like Dumontville is the hammer. Nobody can get near him without getting his head knocked off. And now he lets him go, and it looks like Dumontville is headed for the soap sign in center field. And there goes the St. Louis center fielder on a dead run, back, trying to get under Dumontville, and he's got him. Out!
Well, Larry, he was out all right. That was the last ever seen of Pearl de Montville. As he ran out of the ballpark, he looked like one of those dash hounds with a satchel in his mouth, still smoking that big cigar. Yeah, that was the end of Dumontville, and that was the end of our losing streak, too. When we got in the locker room that day, we couldn't look at each other. And then suddenly we all started laughing and kidding, and I quit complaining and wishing I was with the Angels. Well, sir, we went on to Chicago and took all 4 games. Got 17 hits in the first game. Hey, poor old St. Louis. They were so shook up by that last game with us, they never did hit their stride again. Their center fielder who caught Pearl, well, he took to misjudging everything that come his way. The rest of the team followed suit. That's the way it is on a club when one guy blows up. Well, sir, my boys all went together and bought a pair of them little baby shoes. Got them golded, give them to me as a souvenir. Great guys. Whitey, Billy, made up. We come home like a ton of dynamite. Went on to win that pennant.
Quite a story, Mr. McGrew.
Yeah, it happened about 25 years ago. Suppose it seems like a long time ago to you, boy, but to me it seems just like yesterday. Bugs Courtney standing up at the players' dinner and saluting what he called the greatest man and a half in baseball. Me and Pearl de Montville. You see, Pearl was right. We did kind of make history. And Larry, all this is in the record books. If you don't believe it, you could look it up.
You've been listening to the CBS Radio Workshop, presenting James Thurber's You Could Look It Up. Written, produced, and directed for radio by D. Engelbach. Music by Richard Heyman. Heard in our cast were Ralph Bell, Sarah Fussell, Larry Haynes, Harold Juber, Joe Julian, David Kerman, Del Sharpett. Next week from Hollywood, the CBS Radio Workshop brings you John Train's Silent Witness, starring one of Hollywood's finest actors, Raymond Burr. The CBS Radio Workshop has come to you from New York. This is Ted Pearson speaking. You hear America's favorite shows on the CBS Radio Network.
From Hollywood, the CBS Radio Workshop, dedicated to man's imagination, the theater of the mind. The Silent Witness, produced and directed by William N. Robson, starring Mr. Raymond Burr. This is a play for one person. His voice and his alone will you hear. You will meet other persons. Your imagination will endow them with being, clothe them with costume, justify their motives, and evaluate their ethics. But you will hear only one voice, the voice of Raymond Burr, interpreting the role of Henry Charrington, District Attorney. Silent Witness, an experiment with your imagination.
And so, at last, it came to trial. The State versus William Bard for charged murder. A cheap, stupid murder. Murder of a small-time lawyer. The accused, an elevator boy. Boy, well, a man. The motive, fear. Fear of an accusation of theft. The theft of a gold watch. It was the sort of case that would be forgotten with tomorrow's newspapers, excepting for one point of interest, a point avidly seized upon by the press. You see, the principal witness for the defense Alice Gardner, as you know, was unable to talk. The shock of the murder had been too much for her. She had suffered a stroke. One side of her face and her vocal cords were completely paralyzed. She was able to write, of course, a haphazard scrawl, but legible enough. Alice Gardner was brought directly from the hospital to the courtroom. I opened my cross-examination with delicacy. You can't attack a sympathetic witness too soon. Now, as you know, Miss Gardner, the judge has allowed that you may nod your head for yes and shake your head for no. If the answers to my questions require more than these indications, you may continue to write them on the pad of paper by your side. You understand? Good. Now, you must understand that we here seek only justice. Not the primitive justice of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, but the justice of man-made laws for the preservation of society. Now, if I attack your answers, it is not that I do not feel for you, that I have no grain of human sympathy within me. It is because I am a public servant whose duty it is to see that murderers do not go unpunished, whatever sentimental bulwarks of protection may be placed before them by honest but wrong-thinking persons. Oh, I see you're writing already. May I? Thank you. You write that William couldn't kill anyone. I see. Then it is my duty now to convince the jury to the contrary. Miss Gardner, you are a friend of one William Bart, age 32, occupation elevator attendant at Clifton Gardens, a block of service apartments. Yes? Do you know of a person called Howard Lieberman, lawyer? You do? You want to write? Please do. No, don't hurry. We don't want to rush you. Thank you. Miss Gardner has written, I was responsible for Mr. Lieberman's apartment. Now, Miss Gardner clearly means that she was the service maid for that particular apartment, Mr. Lieberman. That is so, isn't it, Miss Gardner? Yes? Thank you. Now, Miss Gardner, on the night of November 3rd, were you on duty? You were. And so, too, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, was William Bart. And, Miss Gardner, did you hear a disturbance in Mr. Lieberman's apartment? You wish to write an answer? Very well. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a matter upon which I would like the jury to be absolutely clear. Thank you, Miss Gardner. Miss Gardner writes, no disturbance called by bell in service room. I see. To be more explicit, you were called to Mr. Lieberman's apartment by a numbered bell which rang in your service room in the basement. Is that so? Good. And you went to the apartment and found Mr. Lieberman fighting with William Bart. No? I put it to you that Mr. Lieberman was trying to throw him out of his apartment. Yeah, let me see. Miss Gardner writes, no fight, struggle. Struggle? Huh. Well, Miss Gardner, the difference between a fight and a struggle is, in this instance, academic. You do know, of course, that Mr. Lieberman had accused Bart of stealing something. You know what it was? You point to my arm. A wristwatch? What Miss Gardner is trying to say, ladies and gentlemen, is that Lieberman had accused Bart of stealing a gold wristwatch from his apartment. Now, didn't Lieberman say that he intended to have Bart fired? He did? Yes, please do. Thank you. Miss Gardner writes, he had no proof. No proof, Miss Gardner. No proof? William Bart, you will remember, and yourself are the only persons excepting the manager who had passkeys. I suggest to you that Lieberman called William Bart to his flat, accused him of the theft, and Bart confessed. And now I will tell the court the motive for this robbery. The motive, ladies and gentlemen, was the age-old one of necessity, the need for money. Because, Miss Gardner, William Bart was obliged to support a divorced wife. This obligation and the one he felt he owed you were more than he could fulfill. Now, I'm sorry, Miss Gardner. Deeply sorry. If only there could have been some other way. But the medical evidence, as a result of your illness, the child you lost. Oh, so often in this court we have seen something that could have been a thing of joy turn into a sordid parody. And thank you. Miss Gardner writes, William did not steal the watch. I did. Then, Miss Gardner, how do you account for the fact that Bart admitted stealing the watch to the police last night, told them of its hiding place, from which it has been retrieved and is now lying, Exhibit 17, upon that table there? Miss Gardner, you feel you have recovered enough to continue this cross-examination? Good. I am sorry it was necessary to shock you as I did. You now know that William Bart is a self-confessed thief and that you have perjured yourself for a dream. You know also the consequences of perjury. Lies are futile, Miss Gardner. One is always caught. Now, with the permission of the court, I am going to put to you my reconstruction of the crime. I would like you to bear with me until I'm finished. Now, Miss Gardner, after the struggle in Lieberman's apartment, you returned to your service room, correct? But what about Bart? He goes to the basement, makes up the furnace, another of his duties, goes to his room. He smokes a cigarette. Gradually, he realizes the enormity of his offense. Ridden with guilt and fear, he decides to plead with Lieberman, offer to return the stolen watch. He takes the elevator back to the third floor. Realizing that if he rings the doorbell, he will get no further than a foot in the door, he enters quietly with his passkey. Lieberman is startled by Bart's unexpected entrance. He orders Bart out. Bart pleads with him. Lieberman is adamant. Bart's attitude changes. He lunges for Lieberman, who strikes back. They struggle into the center of the room, knocking over a small table on which is a steel paper knife. Bart grabs it and plunges it into Lieberman's throat. He stands there for a few throbbing seconds, forcing his numb brain to think. That's it, a burglary. He must make it look like a burglary. He tears the books from their shelves, completely disarranges the room. In the midst of his evil work, he catches sight of the blood on his clothing. It frightens him. He must get away. He dashes to the elevator, making for the basement to cleanse away those stains of guilt. The elevator begins its descent. But for William Bart, it is a descent to hell. For here points the finger of irony towards him. The elevator jams between floors. And there he is, trapped like an animal in its cage, the mark of Cain upon him. One can well imagine the horror that overcomes him as he stands there between those walls, staring stupidly at the sign in the elevator which reads, "In case of danger, ring emergency bell." The bell that will ring in his room in the basement. Yes, he is in danger, but he cannot ring for himself. Some minutes pass, and a certain Mr. Vince from an apartment above calls to borrow a book. He discovers the body, phones the police. They arrive only to find their murderer already trapped and waiting for them in his cell of guilt. The jammed elevator. Fate can sometimes be both judge and jury. That, ladies and gentlemen, is my reconstruction of the crime, one made possible by my one and only visit to Lieberman's apartment some days after the murder. I see you've been writing, Miss Gardner. Thank you. Miss Gardner wishes me to tell her how I knew about the notice in the elevator, the notice saying, in the case of danger, ring emergency bell, when the notice was taken down 2 days before the murder and one with different words put up. Well, I suppose I must have seen a similar notice in some other elevator. Now, all this is beside the point. It is not evidence, has no bearing. All right? Thank you. Now, Miss Gardner writes, the elevator had been jammed by someone on the 3rd floor. Oh, my. This absurd theory has been put forward already by the learned counsel for the defense, who has tried to show that many people have been trapped in similar old-style elevators as a result of mechanical failure. But even so, if some person, I say if some person, let us say a Mr. X, did jam the elevator, the problem is then, where was he when William Bart was in the apartment? The defense has put forward the remarkable theory that this mysterious Mr. X was in the apartment himself, that having killed Mr. Lieberman, he is searching the apartment for valuables. Suddenly he hears the elevator coming up, panics, dashes to the bedroom to find the fire escape. There is none. He hides in the bedroom. William Bart enters the room, sees Lieberman's body, runs for the elevator. Mr. X realizes that if Bart gets downstairs before he does, all is lost. He follows him, swiftly jams the elevator, runs down the stairs and out of the building. And now we come to the defense's proposition and question of Mr. X's motive. We have it on evidence that nothing of importance seems to be missing from Mr. Lieberman's apartment except the gold watch which William Bart has admitted stealing. And now why? Why should anyone wish to put William Bart on the spot? Lieberman led an ordinary, everyday life. We have no evidence of emotional upsets, financial difficulties, or anything else to suggest some other assailant. What then could be the motive, save the theft of the gold watch? You wish to write, Miss Gardner? Very well. Oh, dear. Pencil broken? Never mind, take my pen. I hope you don't mind the green ink. Now, Miss Gardner. Miss Gardner. Quick, someone. Quick, she's fainting. Well, Miss Gardner, I trust you are feeling better now. Good. I see you have already written something for me, written during the recess, I presume. I shall read it to the court. Thank you. Miss Gardner writes, 2 days before Mr. Lieberman's death, I was clearing out his room. As I was taking away his wastepaper basket by his desk, I noticed on the floor a sheet of paper completely covered with writing in green ink. Green ink. I thought it must be rubbish, and I took it away with the other stuff. Sometime later, Mr. Lieberman rang and asked if I had seen this piece of paper, as it was important. When I said that I had taken it away, he was very angry. Miss Gardner, what did you do with that paper? What did you do? Thank you. I burnt it. You burnt it? Well, then, it appears that the coincidence between that letter and my using green ink is not going to advance us further in our search of an alibi for Bart, is it? Thank you, Miss Gardner. Miss Gardner writes, Mr. Lieberman then said it did not matter, as he had 6 microphotographs taken of it. Mr. Lieberman said he was sending them to some people who would be interested. Did he, Miss Gardner? Then we can only presume that they have been sent to the persons for whom they were intended. I wonder why they haven't mentioned them in the light of present events. Huh? Oh, thank you. Perhaps they were not important. Of course they could not have been. Now, Miss Gardner, when did you first become aware that a crime had been committed? Oh, you're out of paper? I'll get you some. Oh, you have some in your purse? Good. Huh. Oh, backs of envelopes. Yes, I suppose they're all right. But those are unmailed. No, they can't be. Miss Gardner, I have one final question. Do you know who the mysterious Mr. X is? You do? Would you care to write the name on your envelope and give it to me? No? Well, you must. And give it to me. If the answer is the right one, it may be of profit for all of us to know. Any name, even if it is not the one we expect, could raise an element of doubt and perhaps save William Bart. Oh, write the name. And give me that envelope and don't point at me like that. Give it to me! Yes, Padre. I murdered Lieberman. Some time ago, I misappropriated the funds of a client of mine. They'd been left in my trust. I wrote a complete confession to him, as it happened in green ink. He decided not to prosecute since I promised to, and in due course did repay him. But he kept my letter. When he died, Lieberman, who was his lawyer, found the letter in his papers. That sanctimonious fool thought that a man like me had no right to try for the Senate. He thought he could stop me. Me. I would kill 1,000 like him, Padre, with as little conscience as I'd kill a fly. He threatened to expose me if I ran for office. I went to reason with him. I argued with him, offered him money, anything. But he was mule stubborn. He wouldn't be bought. He wouldn't be bought, so I killed him. The rest is as the defense put forward. How was I to know that Lieberman would give these letters to that stupid maid to mail when she came on duty? Or that she would keep them in her purse until after she left the building? And then the crime, the hospital for her, the letters with the micro-photographs lying, waiting until... That, Padre, is the last confession of Henry C. Charrington. The truth. Whole truth. And these, I presume, are the gentlemen who are to escort me to the chair. I've sent quite a few people to you, haven't I, gentlemen? And now, it's my turn, huh? Ironic, isn't it?
You have just heard the CBS Radio Workshop's Hollywood production of The Silent Witness, written by John Train, a one-man play. Raymond Burr was the man. Next week, the CBS Radio Workshop originates from New York. The play, a fantasy. The title, The Green Hills of Home.
The CBS Radio Workshop, dedicated to man's imagination, the theater of the mind. Today we challenge that imagination with The Green Hills of Earth. Original story, Robert Heinlein. Radio adaptation, Draper Lewis. Music, Clark Harrington. Star, Everett Sloane.
This is the story of Reisling. Reisling. No first name, no middle initial. By vocation, he was one of the best jetmen who ever worked as crew aboard the early cargo rockets that supplied the planets deep in outer space. His avocation? Well, anyone born in the 21st century, I'm sure, has quoted his poems, sung his songs. Even with luck, heard him singing them himself in some wind-torn, forsaken tavern on the borders of a spaceport, somewhere out there, beyond the stars.
What's the matter, Reisling? Forget your own miserable words. Go on with the song.
No, I seem to have a strange parched feeling in my throat, induced by a sudden lack of liquid refreshment.
Hey, let's have another round over here and give Reisling a double.
Reisling was no beauty, believe me, with his grease-smeared, tattered space coveralls. His hair looked as though he'd been caught in the backwash of a jet, and he had a permanent case of sun itch that he scratched continually. But that was long before he became the almost legendary figure that you know him as today. One or two of his poems had appeared in the papers, and his first set of space ballads had been published with no particular fanfare. Certainly nothing like the reviews his later efforts would produce when he was hailed as the literary giant of the spaceways. You've heard a lot of stories about Reisling, the kind of stories that are always written about anyone who becomes a legend, a giant. But this is the story of how he lived and died. This is the way it happened.
Tell me not of that Martian maiden. Let her eyes not burn in my heart. For I only know...
Well?
Well, what?
How's it end?
I don't know. I've never been able to finish it. How about that drink you promised?
Just take it easy. The poor girl's only got two hands. Give her a chance.
I'd be delighted to give her a chance.
That's strictly hands off, Reisling. It's marked private property, Captain T.D. Davidson.
Davidson? Don't make me laugh. He may be a captain when he's aboard the Goshawk, but the minute he sets foot off the spaceport, he's just another company member like you or me or any of the crew here. So she's Davidson's little starburst. Well.
I know I wouldn't want to tangle with him. He nurses a grudge for a long time.
Take the rule book out of his hands and he's finished. Captain Davidson and I have had a showdown coming for a long time. And this time it's going to be Reisling who'll make the good captain wish we'd never met.
Rocket ship Goshawk landing at Spaceport 3.
Well, now's as good a time as any, Reisling.
Same thought just occurred to me, too.
Rocket ship Goshawk landing at Spaceport 3.
Let's get out there. Maybe he needs a few new guys on his crew.
The way Davidson treats him, he probably needs a whole new crew. Coming, Reisling?
I wouldn't miss it for the world. Oh, Greg, lend me your pocket tape machine a minute and tell the dock boss to hold me a job on the Goshawk. He'll do it if you tell him it's for me. And if you run into the stalwart Captain Davidson, tell him... Well, never mind. I'll tell him myself. Now, give me that tape machine.
Stand clear for landing. Stand clear for landing.
Every jetman in the business knew about the hatred that existed between Davidson of the Goshawk and Reisling. A hatred whose origin was buried someplace deep in the history of those first years when cargo rockets began to run between Earth and the solar cities on Mars, on Venus, and Saturn and the Moon. Davidson was a symbol of the company, and Reisling had little or no respect for either one.
Davidson here. Reisling, sir.
What is it, Reisling?
Well, according to the rule book, sir, a member of the crew is obliged to report any deficiency in the equipment of the ship. I would like to file an official report on jet number 2, sir. It doesn't fit. The cadmium dampers are warped.
According to the rule book, Reisling, a report is to be made to the chief, who in turn will pass the information on to me.
I did, but he says they'll do. He's wrong, sir.
Reisling, we'll drop you off at the next spaceport if you feel the equipment and personnel is not competent.
Oh, Captain, I couldn't deprive you of the best jetman on the run, sir. No, I wouldn't dream of such a thing.
Captain, what do you think about Jet 2?
It'll hold.
The ceiling's pretty thin, sir. If anything goes, they'll fry down there.
I said it would hold. Increase the jet drive on all jets.
Reisling. You were talking about the Grand Canal on Mars. Is it really as fantastic as everyone says it is?
Well, it's like something you've never seen before in your life. I remember I wanted to write a song about it, but I couldn't. It always escaped me. I couldn't seem to find a beginning. Just like I can't seem to find an ending for the green hills of Earth. Maybe if I go back again, then I can finish it. But right now, I've got something more important to finish. Throw the intercom for me, will you?
What are you going to do with my tape machine? What did you record back there in the tavern?
Just throw the switch like anyone who can take an order.
Reisling, don't write him anymore. You'll make it rough on all of us. He's like that.
I assure you he won't lay a finger on anyone after I get through with him.
Reisling, leave me out of this personal feud of yours.
Who said anything about you, Greg? Okay, switch. This is Reisling to Davidson. Reisling to Davidson.
Davidson here.
Sir, I want to report a stowaway in the jet room.
What do you mean a stowaway? There can't be a stowaway on the ship. It was searched by security before we took off.
Nevertheless, there is a stowaway, sir. Just a minute. Turn up the intercom power. I want to make sure it picks up this tape good and clear.
Reisling, if there's a stowaway down there, I want to know who he is.
Just a minute, sir. All right, now, turn on the tape. Who did you say you were?
I'm Kathy, sir. My last name is McCune.
Kathy McCune? You know, you're very pretty.
But I've never met you before.
Maybe you know a friend of mine. His name is Captain Davidson.
Reisling, are you out of your mind?
Shut up and listen.
I know
this is
Captain
the good part.
Davidson, but he's a much, much older man. He's been very nice to me in a stern, fatherly sort of way.
Of that beautiful creature, I'm very sure.
But I'd rather have you to be nice to me, sir.
Oh. Well, I guess there's no substitute for the real thing.
Oh, darling. Reisling.
You jerk, he'll throw the book at you. The whole crew can tune in on this intercom.
That's the general idea, boy. They'll all know what a phony he is. Father Davidson, Captain Davidson, you're still there, aren't you? Sir? Captain Davidson?
It cut you off.
Well, old rule book's finally made a slip. Or maybe he doesn't know I can log him for switching off the intercom during a flight.
It looks like you're getting off at the next spaceport, and that's for sure.
Man, I wish I'd been up there to see his face. I'll bet he... What's that?
There's a leak. Something's leaking.
Look at Jet 2 control.
We gotta get out of here. We can't stop it now.
Hand me those tools. I can try.
But the jets are on full power.
Tell Davidson to cut to a quarter. I'll stop that leak.
Captain Davidson! Captain Davidson! Reisling is still off. Davidson hasn't turned it on again.
Well, then get up there and tell him to cut the jet.
But you can't stop that leak without a shield.
It's got to be done or the whole ship will blow. Come on, move! Move fast!
Hello, Reisling. They wouldn't let me into the hospital till now. How's it going?
Oh, not bad, Greg.
Captain Davidson wanted to come, too. Well, he's really sorry about what happened. Wants to bring a specialist in from Earth.
Maybe he hasn't heard the final report. Prognosis negative. Total blindness, resulting from radioactivity.
The Goshawk's been junked. He has another ship.
I'm not interested. I haven't got enough time to worry about people like Captain T.D. Davidson. I have too much to do. Much too much.
I don't understand.
Well, it's just that I suddenly have so many places I want to see. I want to go to. Remember in the power room? Remember I told you that I couldn't write anything about the Grand Canal?
I remember.
Well, suddenly it's come into focus. I've been back there a lot of times. Now I really see it. I finally have it in my head, in my heart, in my fingers.
As time and space come bending back to shape this star-specked scene, the tranquil tears of tragic joy still spread their silver sheen. Along the Grand Canal still soar the fragile towers of truth. Their fairy grace defends this place of beauty high aloof. Bone-tired the race that raised the towers, their labors time ignores. Long gone the gods who shed the tears that lap these crystal shores. Slow beats the time-worn heart of Mars beneath an icy sky. The thin air whispers voicelessly that all who live must die. Her lacy spires of truth sing beauty's madrigal, and she herself will ever dwell along the Grand Canal. Yes, she herself will ever dwell along the Grand Canal.
Well, there it is, Greg boy. Now I can see it. Ironic, isn't it?
Thanks, Reisling. Thanks.
When he got out of the hospital, Reisling really began to travel. Space had lost its meaning. He went from the moon to Venus and back again, to the Grand Canal on Mars. Any spaceship was his ship, any spaceport his home. And through the long years, the green hills of Earth grew in length, in magnificence. Wherever he went, the song went with him.
We rot in the moles of Venus. We retch at her tainted breath, and foul are her flooded jungles, or her crawl with unclean death.
Reisling catalogued the solar system in words and music, and always he sang of his longing to return once more to his home.
We've tried each spinning space mote and reckoned its true worth. Take us back again to the homes of men on the cool green hills of Earth.
barely trace the source of all the verses he wrote. But we do know where the final verse was written and when. Now, a spaceship headed for the Great Lakes base on Earth. And Reisling decided at last to go home.
Now, look, Captain. I know I'm out as far as the crew job is concerned, but all I want is a ride back home. You can carry me if you want to. There's a distressed spaceman clause in the books.
That clause was written for men who missed their ships, not for itinerant space hobos.
Captain Hicks, I haven't been back home since my last trip as a signed-on member of a crew. I believe, sir, the law says I'm entitled to a trip back.
That was years ago. You've used up your chances. I'm sorry, Reisling. The answer is no.
Stand by for blastoff. Stand by for blastoff. Destination, Earth. Destination, Earth.
Reisling, you comfortable? Well, smuggling you aboard wasn't easy.
You didn't think I'd pay for a ride on this bucket, did you?
Okay. Well, no one ever comes down here into the jet room anyhow. But you'll have to wait till the ship's unloaded at Great Lakes before I can get you off.
Jack, can you see Earth through the ports?
Yep.
How does she look?
As pretty and green as she always looks, Reisling. As pretty and green.
Let the sweet, fresh breezes heal me as they roam around the girth of our lovely mother planet, of the cool green hills of Earth.
Control room issuing landing order for Port 6, sir. We're doing it at 0845.
I'd like to trim an hour off that. The old man would certainly appreciate it, I know.
Captain Hicks, we're pulling a heavy load.
It doesn't matter with a new ship like this. Let's see what we can do about setting a freight ship wreck at this run. Full power on all jets.
Yes, Captain. Full power on all jets. Boy, that's one eager beaver that's feeling his oats. I'll bet he's out to cop some kind of record.
Well, I'll get over that in a year or so. How's your shielding?
Best you've seen in a long time. Oh, I forgot. Here. Feel these dials? Power?
Huh?
Radiation guide?
Yep.
Direct tap to the pile?
Pretty neat.
Sure, one man can handle the whole operation.
Say, these feel like the old hand-dumping plates we used to have.
I'll accept the links. I unshipped them because they hid the dials.
You ought to have them shipped. You might need them.
They're available if I need them. But I won't.
Well, give this bucket another year or so pulling such a heavy load, and she'll start giving at the seams a little. Wait a minute. Isn't that a leak?
I thought you'd hear it soon. Now, listen. There you are, another new item. Relines automatically and kills the leak.
Control to power, control to power. We're showing a leak up here.
Everything's under control.
Okay, Jack. The skipper doesn't want to cut power unless it's entirely necessary.
Don't worry, sir. The ship can take it. I don't think we'll...
Jack, where is it? I know that sound. Something's gonna blow. Jack, where is it? Tell me where it happened, quick!
The door. The safety door. I can get out of here and close it from the outside.
Okay, Jack. Don't worry.
Control room to power. Control room to power.
Jack. You can't stay in here.
Jack.
The radioactivity will kill you. Get out. That's an order.
The captain ordered you to keep me off this bucket, and you didn't obey him.
This is Hicks. This is Captain Hicks.
Reisling.
Jack, what's happening down there?
Reisling, get out of here.
That jet's got to be spilled, Jack, or it's going to take the other two with it.
Jack, this is Captain Hicks.
Just find the control panel. If I can only see. Reisling.
Jack.
Control calling power room. Control calling power room.
Power room.
This control, Hicks speaking.
Spilling jet 3. Emergency.
Is this McDougal?
McDougal is dead. This is Reisling.
Reisling? I ordered you off this ship. This'll mean jail for the rest of your life.
Keep all safety doors closed, sir. This place is hot. I'm spilling jet 3.
Reisling, There are gloves and a suit in the locker near the door. Can you hear me?
I don't need a suit, sir. Just my hands. Keep the crew out of their quarters. The jet blew while the door was open. And don't let anyone ever tell you that hand dumping is old-fashioned.
Reisling, I am sending the doctor down. He'll be waiting to take you into decon. And we'll have an ambulance waiting at
Captain Hicks, stop it, will you? I've been around. I know what's happened to me.
Reisling, I'm sorry. I'm glad you're aboard.
Captain Hicks, do me a favor, will you?
Anything, Reisling.
The tape recorder started rolling.
It's on, Reisling. What else?
Send this along to a friend of mine. You'll find his name in my instrument case in the crew quarters. He'll know what to do with it.
I'll take care of it, Reisling.
Let the sweet, fresh breezes heal me as they roll around the girth of our lovely mother planet, of the cool green hill of earth. We pray for one last landing on the globe that gave us birth. Let us rest our eyes on the fleet skies
Reisling. Reisling.
and the cool green hill of earth, and the cool green hill of earth.
You've been listening to the CBS Radio Workshop. Today's presentation, The Green Hills of Earth. Our star, Everett Sloan, sang and acted the part of Reisling. Our narrator, Barry Kroger. The cast, Jackson Beck, Danny Acco, Ian Martin, Louis Volkman, Bill Lipton. The program originated in New York, was produced and directed by Dee Engelbach. This is the CBS Radio Network.
My name is Poe, Edgar Allan Poe. I write stories. Charges have been brought against me by certain ignoramuses that I have never written a tale with a moral. By way of mitigating these ridiculous accusations, I offer the following unusual history, a history about whose moral there can be no question whatsoever. For you can see the moral in its very title, Never Bet the Devil Your Head. And note, please, that I do not bring in the lesson at the tag end of the fable, as others are wont to do. Very well, here then I denounce my critics and beg no favor other than your close attention. From Hollywood, the CBS Radio Workshop, dedicated to man's imagination, the theater of the mind. The world too long thought of Edgar Allan Poe as a dour misogynist who concerned himself with black cats, gold bugs, pits, pendulums, and murder. Few realize, and fewer would believe, that this man of gloom had a sense of humor. This, the workshop now seeks to prove in William N. Robeson's production of Edgar Allan Poe's satiric story, Never Bet the Devil Your Head, starring John Dehner, with music conducted by Amerigo Marino, and with Jack Johnstone as guest director. It is not my design to vituperate my deceased friend, Toby Dammit. He was a sad dog, it is true, and a dog's death it was that he died. But he himself was not to blame for his vices. They grew out of a personal defect in his mother. I recall a conversation I had with her when Toby was a mere babe in arms.
Duties to a well-regulated mind, Mr. Poe, are always pleasures. It is my duty, and therefore my pleasure, to see that as quickly as possible my son learns the difference between right and wrong.
But must you flog him so, Mrs. Dammit?
Babies, like tough steaks, are invariably the better for beating. It drives the evil propensities out.
But my dear woman, you have the misfortune to be left-handed.
I do not consider left-handedness a misfortune.
No, you fail to understand me. Madam, a child flogged left-handedly had better be left unflogged.
And deign to tell me why?
The world revolves from right to left. If each blow in the proper direction drives out an evil propensity, it follows that every thump in an opposite one knocks its quota of wickedness in.
Ha! That is a specious argument that does not warrant a reply, except perhaps this.
I was all too often present at Toby's chastisements, and even by the way he kicked, I could perceive that he was getting worse and worse every day. At last I saw, through tears in my eyes, that there was no hope for the villain at all, and one day when he had been cuffed until he grew black in the face, and no effect had been produced beyond that of making him wriggle himself into a fit, I could stand it no longer, but went down on my knees forthwith, and, uplifting my voice, made a prophecy of his ruin. For the fact is that his precocity in vice was awful. At 5 months of age, he got into such passions that he was unable to articulate. At 6 months, I caught him gnawing at a pack of playing cards. At 7 months, he was in the constant habit of catching and kissing female babies. At 8 months, he peremptorily refused to put his signature to the temperance pledge.
No.
Thus he went on, increasing in iniquity month after month, year after year, until in his youth...
Mama, it is my desire to wear mustaches, and furthermore, I'll bet I can grow them. By the bill, book, and candle, by Job's comforter, I'll bet I can.
As you see, he had even contracted a propensity for cursing and swearing, and for backing his assertions with bets. Not that he actually laid wagers. No, I will do my friend the justice to say that he would as soon have laid eggs. With him, the thing was a mere formula, nothing more. You see, he was detestably poor, another vice which the physical deficiency in his mother had entailed upon him. And this was the reason, no doubt, that his expletive expressions about betting seldom took a pecuniary turn. It was usually, "I'll bet you what you please," or I'll bet you what you dare, or "I'll bet you a trifle," or else, more significantly still, "I'll bet the devil my head." At all events, through this most ungentlemanly practice, the ruin which I predicted for Toby Dammit overtook him at last. For indeed the fashion had grown with his growth and strengthened with his strength, to the point that when he finally came to be a man, he could hardly utter a sentence without interlarding it with a proposition to gamble.
Devil me, Mr. Poe. It is and remains my contention that these United States shall serve as an arrow to the target of liberty. My wager on that, sir. I'll bet you what you please.
Toby, this habit of yours is an immoral one, and I feel constrained to tell you so.
Pish-posh, Mr. Poe.
It is vulgar. I beg you to believe me.
Twaddle.
It is discountenanced by society. I say nothing but the truth. Tush! Gambling has been forbidden by an act of Congress. I entreat you, I implore you.
Utter foolishness.
Then, by heaven, I shall have to knock some sense into you.
That, sir, was a dastardly thing to do. Should you venture to try such an experiment again, I shall necessarily return in kind, and you will rue the result. I'll bet the devil my head you will.
Yes, there it was again. The quintessence of his abominable expressions. "I'll bet the devil my head." But there was nothing more I could do. I quit the scene in desperation and in sorrow. However, I could not evade the fact that Mr. Toby Dammit's soul was in a perilous state. I resolved to bring all my eloquence into play to save it. I vowed to serve him as St. Patrick, in the Irish Chronicle, is said to have served the toad. That is to say, awaken him to a sense of his situation. So I addressed myself to the task. I remonstrated with him, but to no purpose. I demonstrated in vain. I entreated. He smiled. I implored. He laughed. I preached. He sneered. I threatened. He swore. I pulled his nose. He blew it. And once again...
I'll bet the devil my head that taught you a lesson.
Toby, have you considered the gross impropriety of a man betting his brains like banknotes?
Should
you have adopted this mode of wager, I'll bet the devil my head, with a pertinacity and exclusiveness of devotion that displeases me no less than it surprises me. Now, the truth is...
I'll bet the devil my head I'm going to get another lecture from you.
The truth is, there is something in the air with which you are wont to give utterance to this offensive expression, something in your manner of enunciation which, for want of a more definite term, I must be permitted to call queer.
Oh?
It is your soul I am considering, Toby. Otherwise, you must believe this. I would not be speaking to you of these matters when I am so aware of your distaste for them. For some moments he remained silent, merely looking me inquisitively in the face, but presently he threw his head to one side and elevated his eyebrows to a great extent. Then he spread out the palms of his hands and shrugged up his shoulders. Then he winked with the right eye. He repeated the operation with the left. Then he shut them both up very tight. Then he opened them both so very wide that I became seriously alarmed for the consequences. And applying his thumb to his nose, he made a disgusting, indescribable movement with the rest of his fingers. Finally, setting his arms akimbo, he condescended to reply.
Mr. Poe, I would be obliged to you if you would hold your tongue. I wish none of your advice. I despise your insinuations, equivocations, adumbrations. In short, sir, your entire peroration. I am of sufficient age to take care of myself. Or is it your misconception to consider me still an infant? Sir, do you mean to impugn my character? Is it your intention to insult me? Are you a fool, sir? Tell me, is your maternal parent aware of your absence from the domiciliary residence?
I beg you.
I put this question to you as a man of veracity, and I will bind myself to abide by your reply. I demand once more, does your mother know you're out? Your confusion betrays you. I'll bet the devil my head she does not. And so I bid you, Mr. Poe, good day.
He left my presence in quite undignified haste. It were well for him that he did so. My anger had been aroused. For once, I would have taken him up on his insulting wager, bet the devil my head indeed. And I would have won for Satan, Mr. Dammit's little head, because, you see, the fact is my whereabouts was known by my mother. Well, it was in the pursuance of my duty that I had been insulted, so I bore the insult like a man. And it now seemed to me that I had done all that could be required of me in the case of this miserable individual. I resolved to trouble him no longer with my counsel, but to leave him to his conscience and himself. But I must confess that although I forbore to intrude with my advice, I could not quite bring myself to give up his society altogether. Worse, I even went so far as to humor some of his less reprehensible propensities, and there were times when I found myself lauding his wicked jokes, but with tears in my eyes, so profoundly did it grieve me to hear his evil talk.
Oh, by the great horned toad, Mr. Poe, your aptitude for companionship, without censure or reprimand, has taken a turn for the better. It puts me in mind of the gentleman from New York, Mr. Greeley, who importuned a man of tender years to seek the western shores, remember? Yet, to my knowledge, never made the trek himself. Oh, yes. Unsought advice is like a woman left waiting at the church. Uncalled for.
Well, perhaps.
Zounds and hellions, sir. I'll bet the devil my head if you cannot agree on that.
Well, all right, Toby. Toby, what's to become of you?
Oh, your concern is, touching, Mr. Poe. But it smacks of your former attitude, and I shall have none of it. None, I say. Come, it's too fine a day to spend it on peradventure and mayhap pursuits. Let us stroll the roadside and the country lane, commune with nature in her pristine glory, seek the unfettered pleasures of the here and the now. Well, sir?
Very well, Toby. Thus it was that we strolled out together, arm in arm, our route leading us in the direction of a river.
Ah, there, Mr. Poe. You see? Beyond the stream, that field of fluorescence. Would not the Roman goddess herself exclaim over its perfection?
It is beautiful.
Beautiful? By the sons of Saul, your words make a beggary of faultless grandeur. My friend, your jaundiced eye requires closer appraisal, and your stopped-up nose a clearer whiff.
But it's only a field of trees and flowers. I can see it very well from here.
Stuff and nonsense. If you possessed a wit of perspicacity, that same jaundiced eye would indicate a covered bridge within a stone's throw. We shall cross it, go beyond it, and wander lonely as a cloud, to steal a phrase from one of the English greats. Come now.
The bridge was roofed over by way of protection from the weather, and the archway, having but few windows, was thus uncomfortably dark and echoed resoundingly. As we entered the passage, the contrast between the external glare and the interior gloom struck heavily upon my spirits. Not so upon those of the happy Dammit, who offered to bet the devil his head that I was hipped. He seemed to be in unusual good humor. He was excessively lively, so much so that I entertained I know not what of uneasy suspicion. A certain species of austere Merry Andrewism seemed to beset my friend, and caused him to make quite a tomfool of himself.
Edgar Allan Poe! Up here, on the railing. I'm a bird. I fly.
Nothing would serve him but wriggling and skipping about under and over everything that came in his way, now shouting out and now lisping out all manner of odd little and big words. I really could not make up my mind whether to kick him or to pity him.
Antediluvian transcendentalism! Whee! Anti-disestablishmentarianism!
At length, having passed nearly across the bridge, we approached the termination of the footway when our progress was impeded by a turnstile of some height. Through this, I made my way quietly, but this turn would not serve the turn of Mr. Dammit.
Hold. This mechanism, Mr. Poe. Are we cattle to be impeded in this manner?
It's merely a turnstile. I passed through it without
It's
any...
merely a turnstile. Well, me, I defy it.
How can you defy an inanimate object?
By leaping over it. Not only shall I leap over it, but I shall perform a buck and wing at the apex of my jump.
Oh, but Toby, it's nearly 5 feet in height.
A bagatelle.
Ah, you're a braggadocio. You cannot do it, and you know you can't.
No? I'll bet the devil my head I can. You hear me? I'll bet the devil my head.
I was about to reply, notwithstanding my previous resolution, with some remonstrance against his impiety, when suddenly I heard, close at my elbow, a slight cough, which sounded very much like the ejaculation...
Ahem.
I started and looked about me in surprise. My glance at length fell into a nook in the framework of the bridge, and there upon the figure of a little old gentleman of, shall we say, venerable aspect, yes, and of reverend appearance, for he not only had on a full suit of black, but his shirt was perfectly clean, and the collar turned very neatly down over a white cravat, while his hair was parted in front like a girl's. His hands were clasped pensively together over his stomach, and his 2 eyes were carefully rolled up into the top of his head. Upon observing him more closely, I perceived that he wore a black silk apron over his small clothes, and this was a thing which I thought very odd. Before I had time to make any remark, however, upon so singular a circumstance, he interrupted me. To this second observation, I was not immediately prepared to reply. The fact is, remarks of this laconic nature are nearly unanswerable. I am not ashamed to say, therefore, that I turned to Mr. Toby Dammit for assistance. Dammit, what are you about? Don't you hear? The gentleman says, ahem. I looked sternly at my friend while I thus addressed him, for, to say the truth, I felt particularly puzzled. And when a man is particularly puzzled, he must knit his brows and look savage, else he looks like a fool.
Toby! Damn it!
Although this sounded very much like an oath, believe me, nothing was further from my thoughts.
Damn it! The gentleman says ahem!
I do not attempt to defend my remark on the score of profundity. I did not think it profound myself, but I have noticed that the effect of our speeches is not always proportionate to their importance in our own eyes. But if I had knocked Toby on the head with the turnstile itself, he could hardly have been more discomfited than when I addressed him with those simple words.
You don't say so. Are you quite sure he said that? Well, at all events, I'm for it now, and may as well put a bold face upon the matter. Here goes then.
Strangely, the little old gentleman seemed pleased. God only knows why. He left his station at the nook of the bridge, came forward with a gracious air, took Dammit by the hand, and shook it cordially, looking all the while straight up in his face with an air of the most unadulterated benignity it is possible for the mind of man to imagine. Finally, he spoke.
Well, Toby Dammit.
That's right, good sir. And what think you of my assertion and my wager?
That you can leap the turnstile?
Correct you are, and perform with consummate skill a buck and wing at the apex of my leap.
I am quite sure you will win your wager, Dammit, but we are obliged to have a trial, you know, for the sake of mere form.
A trial, you say?
My friend took off his coat with a deep sigh and tied a pocket handkerchief around his waist. He produced an unaccountable alteration in his countenance by twisting up his eyes and bringing down the corners of his mouth. I did not express myself aloud, but I thought this is quite a remarkable silence on the part of Toby Dammit, and is no doubt a consequence of his verbosity upon a previous occasion. I wonder if he has forgotten the many unanswerable questions which he propounded to me so fluently on the day when I gave him my last lecture.
Him!
The old gentleman now took him by the arm and led him more into the shade of the bridge, a few paces back from the turnstile.
My good fellow, I make it a point of conscience to allow you this much run. Wait here till I take my place by the stile, so that I may see whether you go over it handsomely and don't omit any flourishes of the buck and wing. A mere form, you know. I will say 1, 2, 3, and away! And mind you start at the word away.
The little gentleman stood there a moment, looking quietly at Toby as though appraising him. Then he turned, walked away, and took his position by the stile. Again he paused a moment, as if in profound reflection, then looked up and smiled very slightly, tightened the strings of his apron, and took a long, long look at Dammit. I thought to myself, what right has the old gentleman to make any other gentleman jump? Who is he? If he asks me to jump, I won't do it, and that's flat, and I don't care who the devil he is. The devil, But what I said, or what I thought, or what I heard, occupied only an instant. The black-suited little man gave the word as agreed upon.
1, 2, 3, and away!
I saw Toby run nimbly and spring grandly from the floor of the bridge, cutting the most awful flourishes with his legs as he went up. I saw him high in the air, buck and winging it to admiration. I thought it a singular thing that he did not continue to go over. But the whole leap was the affair of a moment. And before I had a chance to make any profound reflection, down came Mr. Dammit on the flat of his back, on the same side of the stile from which he had started. At the same instant, I saw the old gentleman running off at the top of his speed. But ere leaving us, he had caught and wrapped up in his apron something that fell heavily into it from the darkness of the arch just over the turnstile. At all this, I was much astonished, but I had no leisure to think, for Mr. Dammit lay particularly still, and I concluded that his feelings had been hurt, and that he stood in need of my assistance. I hurried up to him and found that he had received what might be termed a serious injury. Quite serious. Quickly, I threw open an adjacent window of the bridge, and the sad truth flashed upon me. About 5 feet above the top of the turnstile, there extended a flat iron bar that served to strengthen the structure. With the edge of this brace, it appeared evident, the neck of my unfortunate friend had come precisely in contact. And alas, the truth is, he had been deprived of his head. He did not long survive his terrible loss. Despite the efforts of the physicians, he grew worse and, at length, died. So I bedewed his grave with my tears, worked a bar sinister on his family escutcheon, and assumed the general expenses of his modest funeral. Exit Toby Dammit. Toby Dammit, a lesson to all riotous livers, and proof absolute of my initial assertion that every tale should have, must have, does have a moral.
You have just heard John Daner in the CBS Radio Workshop's production of Never Bet the Devil Your Head, under the guest direction of Jack Johnstone. It was adapted for radio by Alan Botzer, with music composed and conducted by Amerigo Marino. Heard in the supporting cast were Eleanor Audley, Leon Ledoux, Dawes Butler, Richard Beals, and Howard McNear. Next week from New York, the workshop will present The Heart of Man, a dramatization of a surgical operation in which the heart itself is the principal actor. Hugh Douglas speaking. This is the CBS Radio Network.